Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator. I'm all about capturing and curating career and life stories as a meaningful way to celebrate a milestone moment like a big O birthday, anniversary, retirement, or graduation. And I'm at my best when curating photo books that move your memories from the basement or your phone or your computer to the coffee table, giving you and your family and friends access to these treasured memories for years to come. I also love curating and capturing life and career stories through this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? It's a series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, people in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to the stories of people who have been there, done that, so that they might be inspired with some new ideas, or maybe just comforted knowing they're not alone, that everybody starts somewhere and everybody goes through times of transition and times when they feel stuck. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing Richa Singh, who is a consultant to family-owned businesses. So this is a very unique industry and niche. So welcome, Richa.
Thank you. Hi, Kathy. Thank you.
And Richa and I met through a mutual friend, and I guess we met like 2 or 3 times at different events, and just recognized the coincidence of that and said, "Hey, we got to get to know each other better." And so I'm very excited to get to know more about her story. I've already heard a little bit, and it's pretty impressive. We're going to pause for a moment to hear from a very happy life story curator client.
My name is Eleanor Allen, and I recently finished a project with Kathy about my mother's life story. And the reason I wanted to do her life story was that she's first 91 years old. And second, we've been talking about it for years as a family. I have 4 brothers and many nieces and nephews. And we'd never gotten around to making the book. Then one day I was out with another friend who's a mutual friend of mine and Kathy's. And she showed me the book that Kathy had made about her parents' 50th wedding anniversary. And I thought right then and there, this is the answer. I got to hire Kathy to get this life story finally done for my mother. So I did. And working with Kathy is just a joy and a pleasure. So first, how do you organize somebody's 90 plus years into a story that's succinct, but also very interesting? And Kathy helped guide myself and my niece and one of my brothers. I have 4 brothers. One of them worked on this project with us intensely into the storyboarding process, and then working into, okay, these are the chapters of her life we're going to work on, which we went by decade. And then for each decade of her life, what do we need? We need this many pictures and this many vignettes. And then Kathy also brought in this great idea to put in QR codes of recordings. I hadn't even thought of that, but we did several of those. Some are my mother's audio recordings. We captured some of those audio files. Some are video recordings of her telling stories of her life that we have in the book, but of course, much more detail when we have the recording. And some QR codes are also documents. So we put a link to my father's autobiography that he had written for us before he passed as well, and my grandfather's autobiography that my father had done interviewing my grandfather. So very special, and those come to life as well in the book. So I encourage you, if you have any inclination of documenting someone's life story in your life, definitely go for it. It's worth the work, and the product, in this case, my mother's story, is absolutely wonderful, and she was over the moon with joy. So don't wait, do it. Document the life of your loved ones or whatever special occasion there is, and work with Kathy, and you will have a wonderful experience.
Richa, if you would, tell us where you grew up, what part of the world, the geography aspect, but then also a little bit about your family dynamics, birth order, and how both of those things shaped you as an adult.
Well, okay, that's an interesting question. I was born and brought up in India, and within India, I would say central and western part of the India, it's an intriguing nation. Everyone wants to go there, but it's a big nation, and it's a big country with mountains and desert and beaches and all those nice things. And I grew up in a very small town. amongst a lot of siblings and cousins. I grew up in a joint family. And growing up, I actually never realized that some of them were my cousins. I just used to feel that this is how everyone is, there are too many kids in one household. And when I grew up, only in middle school that I realized that there are siblings and then there are cousins. But I guess just growing up in that joint family with too many children and too many people around, I think I learned something which is really valuable, which is sharing, and also accepting people as they are, um, because there are different kind of people in world. So that empathy, I think that was kind of ingrained in me at a very young age, apart
Yeah.
from the apart from all the arguments and killing each other.
So how many people are we talking about?
Let me think. So we are 4 siblings. I know that now. But while growing up, at any point in time, we had about 8 to 9 kids in my house. So both my parents and my grandparents, they were physicians. And back in time in India, being physicians, it was a big deal. So a lot of our uncles and aunts, they used to send their kids to study in our house, because the house was supposed to be good for education and growing up and like being something in the life. So they used to send their kids just to study with us. So at different point in my life, we had people who were doing high school, middle school, college, something or other. And once they pass out from the college, then they will go on lead their lives. But the house served as kind of like a hostel, I would say, for all
Oh,
these
okay.
children.
Yeah. So do you feel like birth order affected you then at all? Because there was so many people, here, when I grew up, I'm a middle child and I have kind of those
Yeah.
middle child tendencies. And then I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed that are firstborn and that very stereotypical firstborn,
Oh yeah.
So anyway, so what about that? Plus also, I know in India, there's also some gender, discrepancies that just like anywhere, right? But I think
All
there may
right.
be a little bit more than here. But tell us a little bit about that.
Um, okay, so birth order, that you're right, that didn't really matter initially, because earlier I always felt that there are at least 2, 3 over me. They weren't. Later, when I realized that in my sibling group, I was the eldest. So it was only after middle school that I started all the bossing around. And if my siblings, they ever listen to this, they will be like, yeah, that you sure did that. So I cannot even, fake that I didn't do that. I did that. Fortunately, within my family, just because, as I said, my mother and my elder sister, they were physicians too. We never really felt that gender, that there's a bias. But within community and the environment that's around you, you know that there is something different between like my brother who is elder to me or my brother who is younger to me. They are getting different treatment, or they are getting different opportunities, or uh, as you grow up in life, then you be and you go out of the safety net of your house, and then suddenly you realize that okay, you're treated differently. So again, I don't want to say that I didn't feel that gender bias, but then again, to my surprise, I thought it was just a thing that's in India because we are developing, but to my surprise, it's everywhere. It's a global thing. Well, but we'll talk more on that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll talk
yeah,
more on that. Yeah. Well, and some, feel it at a very young age, right? That, they're the oldest daughter and then the oldest son gets a lot of different treatment.
oh
And
yeah,
I'm not just talking India. This is also in the US, that it's just a very different role and expectations of the gender. So I was curious how that worked for you. So, okay, cool. Very interesting. I always am just curious about outside of the United States, how the different cultures either are so similar or so different. And we're all humans, right? But we do have different traditions. that get factored in. So,
Oh,
okay,
yes.
so we'll shift gears a little bit then. Would you say you're an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert? You know, that one in the middle.
Uh, that's a tough one. Okay. Personally, I really think I'm an introvert. I'm a quiet person, but then because of the nature of the job and because how I grew up and everything, I come across as an extrovert. When people see me, they feel that, oh, she's an extrovert. But if you ask me, then I'll say the opposite. Now I don't know what to make out of that.
Well, and I do think COVID changed a lot of people, pushed them one way or the other.
Oh
I
yeah,
know I
yeah,
was,
totally,
yeah,
totally. Sometimes I think when I'm in the company of people that I like right now I'm talking to you, I can go on and keep talking about things. So probably then I'm an extrovert, but then sometimes you are in such company and you're like, it's better to just keep quiet.
yeah. You kind of know, I'm not gonna put myself out there. It's
Yeah.
not not a comfortable space. So,
Yes.
okay, what about on the fun meter on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being a couch potato and 5 being life of the party? Where would you put yourself?
Oh my God. Oh my God. If you I think I'll be somewhere in the middle. I would say a 4-ish probably. I don't want to say 5 because of my introvert nature. So sometimes you'll find me at parties sitting quietly at the corner. But we do have a lot of fun in the family. As I said, because I grew up in a joint family, so my idea of fun was always, doing a lot of things with my family, with my siblings. And now that I have family of my own, 4 of us, we do a lot of fun things together. So if you just ask my children or my husband, they'll be like, oh yeah, she's so much fun. I hope so that they say this. but sometimes yeah, at a social gathering, you might find me quietly observing people.
Yeah. But when you're comfortable, when it's your family, you're the director of entertainment, are you?
Oh
And
yeah,
you
yeah,
kind
totally, yeah,
of,
totally.
okay, good
Like,
to
I'm a
know.
planner that way. Yes.
Okay. And then where are you on risk taking? So when you think of like a risk meter, 1 to 5, 1 being low risk taker, 5 being a high risk taker, where do you put yourself?
Mm, probably towards the higher side, higher end. Probably between 3 or 4, maybe 4 too. Again, don't want to put myself at 5 because there are certain things that I still um, don't do or wouldn't want to do. But yeah, I think I'm at a junction in my life where I have seen that no matter how risk averse or risk taker you are, sometimes life put you in a position when you are like, okay, now I have to do this, I have to go through this. And then once you survive that, once you go through that hump, then you realize that, oh, I did it, it's okay. So then next time when that situation comes, you are more comfortable in taking that risk, or you are more aware that it will not affect you that much, it will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You build up that experience that you survived. You
That you
survived the big,
survive. Yeah,
scary,
it's
risky
as
thing,
simple
right?
as,
And so, yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
as simple as, I don't know anything. Like my children, they had me do a zip line one time, and I was sure that I'll die, but then I didn't, right? So yeah, so then now I'm like, okay, sure, I can do that.
Of course, the key is, did you have fun and would you want to do it again? Or do you
Oh
just
yeah,
say,
totally.
check the box? Okay, you do it again.
Totally.
Great. Okay. Well, Richa, tell us what it's like to be a consultant for family owned businesses. And then we'll get into the how did I get here?
Oh wow. I I'll tell you a story. When I was interviewing for this role that I'm in currently with Family Business Consulting Group, one of the questions was, um, "How do you feel doing this job?" And I remember sharing with this in a room full of consultants sitting that this is a job that allows me to be proud and joyous almost all the time, because I am helping families into things that they really need help. They are seeking help. There is not much help available, as you rightly pointed it out. It's a very niche field. Advising family owned businesses into matters like communication, conflict resolution, succession, um, values, how do they want to perpetuate legacy creation, all those things. And when you are in a position where you can affect change, where you can improve lives, I think that is something that makes me really, really proud to be associated and to be a part of this great group where we are doing that every single day.
Yeah. Wow. Well, remember when I met you, I was just intrigued by this notion that, family owned businesses, they are so different, because maybe not everybody in the family wants to be in the business, right?
Yeah,
Or
totally.
maybe even has the business acumen. They want to be in the business because it's family owned business, but they may or may not have the business acumen or the technology acumen or whatever that might be. So very, very interesting dynamic there. So
Oh
very
yeah,
cool.
absolutely, absolutely. And amazingly, every time, including myself, every time I tell someone that I do this work, and they're like, family businesses, really? Are there many family businesses in the world? And when I give them data like in India, about, I don't know, 80-85% percent of businesses are family owned. Same in US, same actually globally. About 80 to 85% of all the businesses are family owned. And when I give people this data, they are
Yeah.
blown. They're like, seriously?
Yeah, because I think we tend to think of business about like the big business that we all see commercially, right? The Amazons, the Googles,
Mhm.
all of those that we just see commercials, Coke, Pep, all those things. We don't think about the
Right.
family and how many there are, but yet so many people, yeah, their whole families are, have had generations of this business, right? And the tradition of it.
Exactly.
So
Hmm.
wow.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I'm gonna take you back a little bit so we can figure out how you got to where you are today. When you were a young girl growing up in India, then were you thinking, yo, one day I'm gonna be a consultant to family-owned business? Is that what you thought you were gonna be, or what was your dream as a young
Oh
person for
no.
your career?
Oh no. Oh no. Not at all. Not at all. Growing up, I guess like any other, kid, I had different dreams at different age. So like from pirate to postman, post office person. I don't know why I liked that so much, but I did. To a firefighter, to a rock star, singer, something, everything but this. Um, another another thing which I was sure of was that I never wanted to be a physician like all the rest of my family is. So that was also one of the important thing. Everyone else above me was a physician in my family. My sibling, my brother, sister, my uncle, mom, dad, grandparents, everyone. So one of the things which I was very sure of, like, okay, I don't want to do this. That is for sure. And other than that, as I said, for the longest time, I was pretty convinced that I'll be a pirate.
A pirate,
A
or a
pirate.
pilot.
A
I might
pirate.
be
A
a
pirate,
pilot
like with the eye patch.
with the eye. Okay, that's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
then I thought, well,
No,
maybe she's saying pilot, like flying
oh
a
no, no,
plane.
no.
No, a
I
pirate.
was a weird kid. I thought that was really interesting. I'll get to travel the world. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So then as you got older into high school and then had to start thinking about college and career and things of that nature, what did you decide? I don't think there's a pirate school, so you probably had to cross that off.
And remember, I was growing up in India anyway. Indian parents, right? They are really driven. And when I was growing up around high school, I was looking around me, and there were people who were on path of becoming great doctors or on path of becoming engineers. And so at that point, I was like, okay, now I need to decide something. I have to pick. Fortunately, I was good in mathematics, so I was like, okay, let me just choose mathematics and um, try and become an engineer. if you really ask me if I ever thought like, what would I do after I become an engineer? The answer is no, I didn't. I had no clue what I was gonna do. I just I looked around me and everyone was pretty set. So that was the time which was really scary for me, because I looked around and everyone knew what they wanted to be. And here I was, the pirate dream wasn't happening, and rockstar dream wasn't happening either. Um, so I had to pick something. So I said, well, maybe, I'll pick something which I'm good at. So I picked something which I knew I was good at. And sure enough, I got into engineering school, became an engineer. It was only that after I became an engineer, then the second question came like, okay, now what? What do you want to do now?
Yeah, now that I have this degree and I have this knowledge, what am I going to do with it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the time when recession hit India. There were no jobs and people were scrambling. So I thought, okay, maybe that's a sign, I can study further. I can study some more, because there is apparently no jobs. And fortunately, again, I was born in a family where we could afford it, me not working and just going for further studies. So it was then that I decided that, okay, engineering plus a management degree sounds good, So I did my MBA then. And it was during MBA that I actually kind of found my true calling, because when I was doing the MBA business administration degree, one of the electives that I chose was organizational behavior. And I just loved it, and I was really excelling in that. And then organizational behavior, organizational development, change management, I started studying all those subjects, and I guess I was pretty good at it, and I really enjoyed learning all those aspects too. And it kind of supported my engineering degree, because it was all related to innovation and new things and how you can bring about change in any organization. So it worked out really, really well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds, on one hand, it sounds like they're very opposite, right? Organizational development, change management, that's more on the people side, dealing with the humans and the dynamics of
Yeah.
humans. And then the engineering is more about, I tend to think of it as being more about things and building stuff and
Uh-huh.
creating things. But engineers have to be able to talk to people and work with people and vice. I mean, you probably have both sides of your brain very big and very powerful, and so now you've kind of developed both to see, well, which gives you more energy, right?
Right. No, but you know what? I was talking to someone yesterday, not yesterday, someday, and I was just telling them how everyone should do at least 1 year of engineering, because I really feel it's not so much of it's kind of a way of life. It allows you to think in a certain way. You can see systems, and you can see structures, and you can see how things work and patterns, and look back at let's say patterns and how things are emerging. And when I see people and when I'm working with families, that knowledge actually helps me into recognizing patterns and understanding structures and systems. And it feels very disconnected, but it's not.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
interesting.
just if you are able to apply those principles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
all for like cross divisional applications of things.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, very interesting. So then you can apply both. You could see how both kind of work
Yeah,
together. Yeah.
totally.
So what ended up being your first job then? So you get the MBA, hopefully the economy's better and there's more jobs available. How did you when you
Oh
launch
yeah,
yourself out now, what do you do?
yeah. I did land a job, for sure. It was a great job. It was a manufacturing company, and they were really big in India. And the job was fantastic because it allowed me to use both my degrees, engineer and as well as my MBA degree. But life is not like that. Life is not that all like linear, that you're succeeding and doing everything that you want to. So for better or worse, now I know it's for better. At that point, I imagined that's the worst thing that could have happened to me. But anyway, I got married at that point. That was my first marriage. And again, in India, once you get married, it's given, it's expected that you leave the job and you will try to settle wherever your new life takes you. So like any other young person that got married in India, that's what I did. But unfortunately, that didn't work out. And when that didn't work out, it actually left me at a really bad place. Um, I, yeah, I mean, I anyway had let go of my old job, and a couple of years has passed, and I was depressed and I was just stuck. And at that point in time, I actually didn't want to do anything. And because of um, purely financial obligations, I had to really decide that I needed to do something at this point in time. So just sheer chance, I landed I I actually called my first job, because before that, the job that I had, I didn't even finish 6 months in that. So again, I land at my first job in this second phase of my life, which was at a really lowest point in my life. And that job was actually of a teacher, a professor at a university. They had recently, this university, again, very small town, they had recently launched their management program, and they were on lookout for people who could teach the exact same subjects that I was teaching: studying organizational behavior, change, leadership, entrepreneurship, development, all those things. And they were on lookout, and someone said that she can do it, Richa can do it. And they said, do you want the job? And I was like, I really need the job. And they said, we can give you, but it will be a part-time. So I said, sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
part-time's better than nothing, right? You just had to get back into the
At that
workforce.
point, I was like,
Yeah.
So I started as a part-time teacher, teaching leadership, entrepreneurship development, organizational change, organizational development, all those nice things. And before I knew it, I was doing really well. For someone who is at the lowest point in their life, who is really dejected and who is really at a very dark spot, for some reason, I was teaching all the right things to the students. And if I remember my students telling me like, oh, you are such a happy person, or you are so optimistic, you're so hopeful. And I was not. But somehow things that I needed to learn the most for myself, I was teaching the best to the people, to the students around me. And again, now I know that was for better. At that time, again, I felt that that's the worst thing. But I was doing really well. And they offered me a full-time job, and then from full-time job to a professor to a director, like I was growing. And it was then that I actually made a switch and came and actually got introduced to this wonderful world of family-owned businesses. But that's another story.
Well, I'm so curious how you, so it sounds like in a way, when you started teaching, it's almost maybe like you put on a front, that you knew you were in front of a class, you had to be upbeat, you had to be able to teach. And,
Yeah.
and so, but, and then, but you were operating one way there, but then maybe behind the scenes, it didn't still feel so right. But at some point, did it catch up and that you're like, wait a minute, maybe I am happy and I am upbeat, and these are the things that are moving me forward.
Actually, yeah, you're right. I never really thought about it in that way, but maybe you're right because it was a front for sure. I was one of the subjects in within entrepreneurship was leadership, how to be an effective leader, communication, conflict resolution, all of the things which I'm calling, now I call myself an expert in. But at that point in time, I had no clue. I had, I just came out of a failed marriage, and in my own eyes, I couldn't communicate. I wasn't a great leader. I had no zest or initiative or you know anything that I
Mhm.
was teaching. I couldn't find it within myself. So what I did was I studied, I applied myself, and I made sure that when I go in the class, I'm teaching all the right things. Maybe I'm not that, but let me teach all those things. And
Yeah, teach all that.
somehow,
Mhm.
somewhere where I was teaching all of it, or I was trying to apply myself, probably some of it, you know, it rubbed on me, or maybe I thought, okay, that's a good teaching. Can I,
Yeah.
for me, can I'm teaching 7 habits of highly effective people. Can I be that effective person? And I'm not kidding you. That's literally what I was doing. I used to read things, and I thought, okay, that's good. Maybe I can do it for myself. And uh, it was only when I was really excelling, and it was only when I was feeling really confident in myself that this big turn of event happened. I sometimes I feel maybe it was fate, but sometimes I feel maybe it was because I was feeling confident in myself, in my ability, in my what I was saying. So
Mhm.
that's actually what happened. I was preparing for my doctoral research, and that research was on empathetic leadership, how people with high empathy and kindness tend to do better than people who have good IQ. And in my life, I'd seen it for myself that when you have high empathy, you do better. So anyway, that was my topic for my doctoral research. I was doing a lot of it when my mentor, he reached out to me and he said, Richa, that's a fantastic topic. Can you do something similar for leaders uh, who are in family owned businesses, the next gen leaders? And again, I had no clue who next gen leaders were. I was like, what family business, what next gen leaders? And he said, you are a researcher, you are a scholar, why don't you just go ahead and figure out? And to my surprise, 8 out of 10 businesses at that time which I contacted were family owned. And another surprise was which you pointed earlier in the talk was a lot of next generation children of these legendary businessmen. Either they were not interested, or they were interested but they were not equipped to be as great or visionary leaders as their fathers or grandfathers. So the task was, how can we equip them to become these empathetic leaders, so that they can not only just take the business but also take care of the people uh, who are in the business, and take care of the people who are in the family. So imagine your own family, like who is the family leader after the father or after the grandfather, and are they equally empathetic, kind, or more, so that they can take care of everyone within the family.
Yeah. It's interesting. This whole story just had this flashback. My very first job out of high school, I was a typesetter at a printing company. And it was, a gentleman who owned it. I didn't really think it was a family owned business because it was just him. But then his wife worked there and she did a lot of the design work at the time it was letterhead and business cards, things of that nature. And then I worked there for about 6 years and then they were going to move the business. And now at this time, the sons are starting to come up through junior high and high school, and they would work there in the summers. And I never really thought much about it, but I ended up leaving when they moved. But what I found from my successor was she had that very issue. The son comes in, he's been in the business just on the weekends and on the summers, right? And she's been there running as this manager, moved
Absolutely.
the company, did all this stuff, put all this sweat equity into it. And then now he's going to be the new leader. And she's like, well, what experience do you have? But he has the blood, and so, and he also had kind of the entitlement of, well, it's my family and this is my business. And she's like, yeah, but I know more about your business than, I mean, it was a very, when I
Uh-huh.
talked to her later, she's like, "Oh, you made the right decision leaving," And I was like, "Wow, I never." Anyway, I'm sorry. You're talking about that story. I was like, "Oh, wait, I was in a family-owned business and I didn't even know it
Yeah.
until it would have crept up on me, right? When he was ready to take over the reins, and I'd been like, "Well, what am I working here for?" So
But
it's
that,
not, I guess it's not just the family that's the leadership dynamic, right? It's all the other people who maybe work in the business who may or may not
it
be
is.
family and how they're treated. So, wow.
It
Wow.
is. It is. When that transition happens, from one generation to other, it's not that you can say that, okay, now you are the new CEO. You have to take care of every single process, every single employee, every single person that sits in that office, and how well they are transitioning. So at that point in time, if the new leader that's coming in, if they are coming in from a place of great empathy, or if they are trained in that, that actually becomes a very important skill to have. And absolutely, that realization. I mean, imagine my own family. It was a family business. Everyone was a doctor, right? I never
Hmm.
realized until, and I didn't join them. That was one of my
Yeah.
things. I do not want to join them, but it was until very late that I realized, okay, wait a second. I also come from a family which which is has a
Family
family
business
business.
too. Well, and you were the rebel, you were the pirate, you're the one that, wanted to travel the
I did
world.
become the
So
pirate. That is so true. My sister tells me that you did become the pirate.
yeah, you did. So it's interesting though. I guess another theme I'm seeing in your story is how you would go, like you said, you're a scholar, you're a researcher. What do I need to learn about so I can teach better? Or what do I need to learn about that's really going to help this leader, this situation? And that seems to be, and you just figure it out. And then you ended up figuring it out even for yourself, right? In terms of getting out of your own negative space and that spiral that you were in, right? And that now you start seeing confidence and momentum and recognizing that while you may have failed at a marriage, that doesn't make you a failure, right? Um,
So
or
yeah,
that your marriage
that's
failed, that doesn't make you a failure. That just didn't, that situation didn't work. Yeah.
yeah. No, that's an important lesson. That's a very important lesson to understand that life is not one event. It's a journey. So things happen. It sounds cliched, but I think important part is every time you fall, if you are able to get up and walk again, or start again.
Hmm.
Again, fortunately, unfortunately, in my life, there were several periods where I felt my lowest, but then I could get up and start again, and somehow it always turned out for better. I'm a
Ah,
spiritual person, so sometimes I, when I talk, I come across as someone who is very spiritual, which I am, and I truly believe that sometimes if you just keep on focusing on what you can improve, what you can do, what you can work on, things have a tendency of taking care of themselves, and later when you look back, you realize that maybe that was a good thing.
yeah. Yeah. Instead of obsessing about what the thing is and maybe trying to hold on to it.
Oh, yeah.
One of the lessons I've learned through all of these interviews is it kind of reinforced for me this notion of being in action, right? That, like you just said, if you're stuck or if you're frustrated or something just happens to you and you're not feeling good about it, well, find something that makes you feel good. And then you start, learning and growing in a different way. And next thing you know, that can open another door, but it just starts moving you forward. Because if you stay in the thing that makes you feel bad, that pity party, that
Oh yeah. Oh
negative
yeah. Good.
space, there's no way out of that a lot of times until you do make that change to say, okay, I'm going to read a book. Maybe I'm going to take a class. I'm going to meet with this person. I'm going to, I'm going to explore this thing over here, but at least you're starting to be in action and taking your mind off of the other thing and moving on to something new, something different.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Coming from growing up in family of physicians, that's the first thing you are taught, is to be very quick on your feet, and when you are hit by a crisis, and think, what can I do? What's actionable at this point? So I remember my parents teaching us CPR and first aid and all those things, and they always used to tell us, no matter if it's a cut, burn, wound, or someone is dying, you don't have time to cry. You have to be quick on your feet, and you have to start chest compression. You can cry later, and that stayed with us. So when the crisis hits me, even today, and then later on, one of my mentors, he always used to say too, like, okay, what's the actionable now? This has happened, sure. Can we stop the pity party? Can we get on to what's actionable? And that kind of gelled with my instinct around, like, okay, this guy just fell down, he's dying. Like, okay, we can cry later. Can we do something right now to help this person? And I couldn't agree more. What's actionable? What can be done?
I like that. What's actionable? That's just like, what's in action. Sometimes when I say the word being in action, then it's like, well, does that mean in action, like no action? Or is that being in? Anyway, so I like actionable is easier to say.
Actionable.
And probably better to understand from my listeners. So, okay. So you're working with a mentor. He encourages you to start doing some research around family businesses. So you start working with family businesses just as your own consultant, or did you then move out of being, and it sounds like you're in academia and then you end up moving over into either employee or consultant. What was the next step?
Oh yeah. I was in academia totally when, again, I got this great opportunity. And because I was so skeptical of the field, never heard of it kind of thing. So I started again as a part-timer that let me just run this program. Let me just run this program for Next Gen. So we started running this program for Next Gen Family Business Owners of India. And that got successful. That got really successful. And then,
so you went from skeptical to successful. Is that how that?
That's my life, that's my life. Okay, start something skeptical. Oh, can I be a good teacher? Probably not. Let me give it a try. Can I be a good consultant? Probably not. Let me give it a try. So anyway, I don't know. I just got sucked into this world. It was so fantastic. I was doing this coaching. It was really successful. I started meeting with all these families, and I saw that within that family unit, within those 5, 10, 15 people, everything that I was teaching in college, in my books, was happening. There was politics, power, organizational behavior, organizational change, leadership. Everything was happening in that one unit. And I thought, if these things can be applicable to an organization which has like 1,000 people, why can I not apply myself again for this family? And that's when I again found the courage to make this complete switch and start working full time into this field of family business management, family business governance, and become a full time consultant. And that's also back in India, right? So this all is happening in India still. And then again, life, right? So life, your career is going in one way, then life is going in the other way. And, life took a turn and brought me here to USA. And I still remember I tried working, this is pre-COVID, right? So I tried working, managing both. Like I thought, okay, I'll travel. I can still keep doing consulting in India. And I tried doing consulting in India while traveling from US. And well, it didn't work out. You know that.
Oh yeah, that's got to be so grueling on you, physically, emotionally.
It just wasn't working out. So at that point in time, I remember being, working in India and leaning on a lot of resources and studies and books of this organization called Family Business Consulting Group. They were global #1, and we used to use them, quote them all the time. So when I started thinking, like, what should I do in US? And my boss from India, he tells me, well, you have nothing to lose. Why don't you just apply to Family Business Consulting Group? And I said, no way. They are world #1, right? And he said, what can they say? They'll say no, right? And I was like, yeah, sure. So again, that risk-taking thing, right? So I said goodbye to my job in India and applied at FBCG. And probably, I don't know, luck, whatever, or just gratitude. But they said yes. They didn't say no. They said yes.
They didn't say no, they said yes.
Yeah, I asked and they said yes.
And that's where you are today
That's
now.
how I landed in what I am calling world's #1, Family Business Consulting. I'm one of the member of this really, really elite group of colleagues, and who I always admired from far, right?
Mhm.
You look them from far, and you are in this like small country, small town, and you're looking at their websites and you're like, oh my God, these people are amazing, amazing. And then you just get to be a part. It's still surreal for me. I keep telling them that it's still surreal for me. But it happened. I had to go through a lot of hoops to get here. But as I said, coming from India, small town, women, here women of color too, and to be able to find that place for myself in a field that is completely male dominated, and being able to advise these legends, billionaires, of family businesses. As I said, all I feel is gratitude. All I feel is pride, joy.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate, I grew up in a small town as well. And it's true, you kind of have that, you then think everything else is bigger or better or maybe more than what you have. And it's hard to feel like you fit in to the bigger picture sometimes. But then you're in it, and like everybody grew up somewhere. And maybe someone who grew up in a big city would love the fact that, when you get to grow up in a small town, it's so different. So well, Richa, I could just keep talking to you all afternoon, but we do have to wrap up. I know you've got something in about 5 minutes. So two wrap-up questions.
Mhm.
First is, when you look back now, what do you think served you best as you look at your career? And it can be a habit, a characteristic, a discipline. What do you think served you best?
I think I can say hard work, learning, going out of your way to really learn and apply something, um, uh, being humble enough to say that I don't know, but I can learn. Um, I think that was something that really, really helped me throughout my career. Uh, Hard work and this willingness to learn.
Yeah, because when you're willing to learn, then once you learn it, then you're happy to maybe share it with someone else because it was interesting to you, and then you're willing to learn more, and then that's interesting. So how do you share that? So it's interesting to me. Sometimes teaching is a calling, and some people are just drawn to wanting to be a teacher, and yet you really kind of tripped into it, right? That it's like, well,
Almost,
I'm
yeah.
a good learner. You're a good learner, and then you made yourself a good teacher. So
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
Okay. So last wrap up question then is, any words of wisdom that impacted you when maybe you were in a low point or you were feeling stuck? Any words that, this could be something someone said to you, or maybe you say to yourself, or a quote that really just, really sparked you and got you out of a funk.
Um, one which I said before too, what's actionable? Okay, sure,
Yeah.
it's happened, but what can you do now? And sometimes when you are really, really in a dark place, the best thing you can do is probably just get up from your bed. But even that's actionable and that's good enough. And if you can just get out of your bed. And then other thing which I learned in a longer span is there is life is too big to really constrict yourself or really trap yourself in one event and thinking that is your life, but it's not. If you can just move on from that place, you'll see that it gets better. So everything, this too shall pass. There is light at the end of tunnel, howsoever you want to call it. But
However you want to
you
say
just
that.
get up and move. Um, you can look back at that event and say like, okay, well, I learned a lot, but that wasn't it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was at this conference the other day and they said something about a failure, talk about a failure. And everyone at the table said, well, we don't want to look at it as a failure. We really look at it as a learning opportunity. Because if you put that meaning failure on there versus learning opportunity, it's very different, right? And how you look at this situation happened. How do you keep it, objective? What the situation happened. Don't give it any more meaning than the fact that the situation happened. And so then what can I learn from the situation? So yeah, I'm tracking right with you. So, well, thank you so much. Again, I could talk to you all afternoon, and I can't wait now that you're part of the Wise Women group that we're going to be able to spend a lot more time together. Well, of course, we could anyway, because now that I know you, I have all your information. So, so listeners, if you enjoyed today's interview, please subscribe below so that you'll be alerted as other interviews are published. And you can find this interview as well as my contact information and Rich's on my website, lifestorycurator.com. And it also has the other 100 and some interviews out there as well. So on that note, I'll say stay safe, stay well, and let's keep sharing those stories. Have a great day.